Okay, sounds good. So welcome, guys, and we're diving into the essence of brand identity and how to communicate it consistently today. Before we begin, we would like to have a land acknowledgement. Bonnie, if you can go to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so before we begin, let's acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and stolen territories of the Musqueam people. As we gather virtually today, let's acknowledge the significance of the land we each stand on, which may be different for everyone. And although we meet online, our presence spans throughout marked and unmarked lands. Communication has the power to reach across these lands, and it's a powerful tool for advocacy. It's our responsibility to use it thoughtfully, recognizing its potential impacts on lands and territory and their history. Let's carry this mindfulness into our workshop today. Next slide, please. Okay, so we would like to dive into a quick introduction to our communications team. So the UBC Psychology's communications and web team basically provides communication services to our faculty, staff, and students throughout our website, digital and social media channels, and media relation efforts as well. This includes everything from promotional strategies and design to helping lab participant recruitment and events. A quick introduction of our team. We have Bonnie and Kushi, who are our comm specialists. And I'm Sushmita, and I'm joined with Natasha, who is a work-learn research communications coordinator. If you just want to pop in and say hi, Natasha. And yeah, and then I'm Sushmita. I'm also a work-learn student, and I'm the web and communications coordinator here. Okay, so let's dive into it. We want to give you a brief overview of everything. So the next slide, Bonnie. Okay, so before we get into everything, we would want to know what you think about what comes to your mind for lab communications. So there's a Mentimeter code and a QR code you can sign and log into Mentimeter, and you can quickly prompt, like type in what you feel of the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about lab communications.
We're going to give a minute for people to join the Mentimeter link, and then we can go ahead and switch our screen to the Mentimeter slide. If you didn't catch the QR code, there's a number code on top of oh, there you go. These people got it. It's all good. Have community meetings, know each other. Participant recruitment, RA recruitment. So we're seeing a lot of similar ideas of what lab communications is or what we think lab communications is at the moment.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up as well, like what psychoms can help with the labs, as well as what the labs expect out of communications. So just getting to know each other and putting up like the brand that people can recognize, or we can help with participant recruitment and just be more prevalent in the digital platform. So thank you guys for sharing. We have another question for you guys. So if you could just switch the screen to the Canva slides. Okay, yeah. So what are you hoping to learn today? So this is our first ever session of the branding of the Pathways to Lab Communication. We would love to know what your expectations are for this series. And yeah, just if you can just answer, there would be a response. And the Menti code is on the Okay, we have responses coming in. Thank you. Yeah, knowing more about the psych department, we can definitely help with that through the communications aspect of it. Advice on editing lab websites. Yes, that's something we would like to get into as well in the further sessions. Today, we want to just focus on building a foundation about brand identity and consistency, and we would dive more into in the later sessions about social media specifically or lab websites. So that's great to know that there's a need to understand that as well. Generate contact with more people. Yes, communication can definitely help with increasing reach. So that's something good to have an aim for as well. Yeah, trying to contact for what type of advice, like communication spice advice. Yes, definitely. We would love to be there to help you guys out with your lab specific advice. So I hope you guys can take something away from the session and the future sessions going forward. Okay, we'll give it like 30 seconds or more, otherwise we can move forward. But thank you guys for sharing. Yeah.
I think we're good to move on. It's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Okay. There we go. Okay, so just to give you guys a brief overview of what we want to cover today, I will be covering firstly what's brand image and brand consistency, just to give you guys a bit of a background of what to look forward to. And Natasha will be covering UBC Branding Guidelines and how to maintain brand consistency across UBC psychology. And then I will be taking over again to go through utilizing brand assets effectively. Okay, let's get started for the first topic. Next slide, please. Okay. Okay, so just to get first a foundational understanding of what brand identity is. Brand identity is basically the visual and content that represents your brand's personality. It's about crafting a personality that amplifies the core elements, values, and mission of your brand. Basically, your brand identity is what makes you unique. And creating a strong brand identity can help your target audience to recognize and differentiate you from others. It builds awareness about your brand. The brand identity can basically include brand visuals, logos, colors, fonts, and it can also have voice and tone like a slogan or a tagline, a social or email website copy, etc. For example, let's take Lego. I hope everyone has heard of Lego. And when you think about Lego, and you think about the bright primary colors and distinctive blocks and playful product, it immediately conveys a sense of creativity and fun. This consistent use of visual and verbal elements forms a brand identity, and it sets apart and makes it more memorable for the audience. For us in UBC Psychology, it's about expressing UBC Psychology's character and mission through our unique brand and visuals and voice. For UBC Psychology, expressing one's values and missions through our unique brand's visuals is very significant. And for you guys, for psychology labs, it can help showcase what each lab stands for, the research you're passionate about, the values you uphold, and the lab culture itself. It's about giving a clear picture of what participants or potential volunteers can expect when they engage with the labs. Let's go to the next slide. Now, a second aspect of this is brand consistency. Brand consistency is how you present a uniformed brand identity in the same tone throughout all marketing channels. Creating brand consistency involves adapting your brand identity and suit it into various marketing platforms effectively. The goal of brand consistency is to increase brand recognition. We want people to be able to recognize so that we distinguish ourselves and to do so in a consistent manner throughout our content. It's the same with Lego, whether it's a store, online, or an ad. You see those signature blocks and bright colors, you know it's Lego. That's brand consistency, keeping your brand look and message the same everywhere. At UBC, we aim for that same harmony. Every piece of communication, from a brochure to a tweet, carries a unique style and values. And for us in UBC Psychology specifically, it means that our messages fit perfectly into UBC's branding while still adding our own flair into it. For your labs, this might mean that making sure your research, your goals, your community that you're building are clearly communicated consistently, no matter where or how. It's about creating a reliable and recognizable experience for everyone who comes into contact with your lab, virtually or in person. It's about setting clear expectations of the work you do and the values you stand by. I will now pass it to Natasha to dive into understanding branding guidelines in UBC specifically. Next slide, Bonnie. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll be talking about UBC branding guidelines. So UBC, we have a branding guideline that encompasses all departments, faculty, schools, just to give a foundation for all the communication that happens within the institution. So this includes strategies for visual identity, writing style, photography, web presence, social media, and all the content, marketing, ads, signage, everything that you can think of when you think about communications. And it's designed and in place to shape UBC's reputation and just to ensure that all the communications that happen, it's consistent and reflective of UBC's values and missions. So they include logos, signature, typography, and colors. These four elements are the foundation of UBC brand. And it demonstrates organizational purpose and accountability to stakeholders. Next slide, please. So the logos and signatures of UBC, you can see the full signature here, which is UBC's primary brand logo. It has multiple elements to UBC's visual identity, including the crest, the word mark. So this is the full signature, and secondary logos can also be used in place of the full signature if there's not enough space. For example, we can just use the UBC crest, the word mark is itself as a standalone, or letter forms, just the UBC initials. UBC brand guidelines also includes unit signatures, so faculty, department, and school signatures, which I will later talk about. Next slide, please. Thank you. And as for the typography, UBC uses Whitney as its primary font and Guardian Egyptian as its secondary font. And for formal communications, Whitney should be used as the primary font with Guardian Egyptian used as an accent. So it should be used in place where you want something to stand out, or yeah, it shouldn't be the first primary font. But in case you don't have access to Whitney or Guardian Egyptian, because sometimes websites don't allow to use that, or yeah, UBC places Open Sans as the alternative font to Whitney and Merriweather in place of Guardian Egyptian. So these fonts should always be used to convey UBC's brand identity and brand visuals, just so when you see the font, you can pinpoint, oh, that's UBC, like Sushmita was talking about Lego. So a similar perspective. Next slide, please. And for the UBC colors, the primary colors are the UBC blue and white, and secondary colors, we have an array of different shades of blue. And just a quick tip, the secondary colors should be used to bring out like a different personality or tone in your communications, but it should always be used in conjunction with the UBC blue. And when I see that blue, I immediately think of UBC, so it's working. Yeah. Next slide. And I just put some examples for how UBC uses its colors, logos, and font as well here. On the left side, you can see UBC's main web page. There's a photo, but you can also see like the UBC blue use and the crest, the full signature. Yeah, that ties it around and says that this is UBC. And on the right, it's the same idea for UBC social media. So even the photography, um, and it's just cohesive and tied together with all the elements of UBC logos, colors, signatures, and font. Next slide. I also have an example of something that is not web or socials. This is a template that UBC has put out for a research project poster. You can also see the UBC blue used, and the secondary colors are used as an accent color in conjunction to the primary color. So this is how we would apply the UBC branding visual elements to encapsulate UBC as an institution and as a brand. So you show UBC's personality through the designs. Yeah. Next slide, please, Bonnie. Thank you. And I'm going to be moving on to maintaining brand consistency across the Department of Psychology. Um, so the communications within UBC Psychology, whether it be um, from our communications team or the labs, should adhere to the UBC brand guidelines, and we should adjust to the content. Sorry, we should adjust the content to the context where necessary, depending on the medium, the target audience, etc. We utilized UBC's brand color palettes, the primary and secondary that I was talking about just now, but we also use a blue teal color to distinguish ourselves as a department. As you can see, it's the furthest to the right in the color palette. And this color should be used again in conjunction with the UBC blue and should not be should not be put in place of the UBC primary brand colors. Next, please. Thank you. And we also have the unit signatures that I was talking about, just to show, to put a brand on UBC Psych. And in case we don't have enough space to use the full Department of Psychology full signature, we usually use the short form signature of UBC Psychology, as you can see, which we use in our presentation today. Next, please, Bonnie. Thank you. We also use the size symbol to support our communications in an inspiring and consistent way. And we have the symbol stylized as well, so it differentiates us from other psychology institutions, and it uses the UBC blue and the department color as well. Next, please. And I have here an example of the Magic Lab. So one of our labs here at UBC Psych. Next, Bonnie, thank you. So the first one, we see the UBC full signature used with the campus location. So this is a great example of how to use the signature to indicate that this lab is a part of UBC, just to have a clear association with Central UBC. And next, please. The website also uses the psychology logo, again, to distinguish itself even further of being a part of the Department of Psychology. And this is a psychology lab, a lab under the Department of Psychology. Next, please. And the header of the lab also uses the UBC secondary color. This is an amazing example of how to use secondary colors in conjunction to the primary. Sorry. Thank you. Next, please. And it's used in conjunction because the fonts here, if you can see, are used in UBC blue. I know it's very, very subtle, but it creates a cohesive look that shows UBC colors and ties everything together with the secondary primary color. And the font as well is also UBC branded font with me, the primary font. Yeah. Next, please. I also have another example for the depression, anxiety, and stress lab, just to dive into more specific lab examples. When I was looking at the Instagram of Das Lab, I noticed a color palette that they made themselves already. And I think this is a great example of how consistency is used within the labs and to distinguish like themselves. They have the logo as well that I think really encapsulates the lab and their vision and mission. Um, and creating a logo and like a color palette and sticking to it is not necessary, but it's always good to have a unique factor that can differentiate you from other labs, just because we do have quite a lot of labs under psych and even more outside of psych and within UBC. Unfortunately, the communications team does not offer logo creation or design for labs, but you can request a unit signature um, for the lab through UBC brand and marketing, and we can share you the resources for that later on. Next, please, Bonnie. And I just want to invite you to think about 3 words that best describe your lab's key attributes and how would you incorporate this into your brand identity and consistency. For example, for UBC Psychology, we came up with innovative, inclusive, and inspiring, and we want these 3 words to shine through in our design and communications, whether it be for labs, signage, social media, everything that you can think of that is front facing, or even when talking to stakeholders and emails, stuff like that. We just want our image and personality to show in our communications. So, for example, if it's the desk lab, what were the 3 words that would best describe your lab, and how does it show in just now your color palette and your logo and stuff like that? I think this is a really good starting point for the labs to think about when thinking about branding and communications and how to reach an audience, because I think it's really important to tell people what you stand for as a lab and what research you do. And I think communications is a really good channel to show that. Yeah, next please, Bonnie. I'm gonna hand it off to Shishmira. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. So yeah, as Natasha was discussing previously, UBC offers a wide collection of brand assets to help simplify the creation of branded materials while ensuring adherence to UBC guidelines. So these tools are ready for you to use, and they cover everything from logos to email signatures to like detailed templates about research presentations and more. And they're built to ensure that whatever you create aligns with the UBC's brand, making your work instantly recognizable and professional. And for fonts, you can simply stick to like using consistent fonts like Open Sans and Merriweather, and secondary fonts. So Open Sans can be your primary and Merriweather could be like your secondary font, and to ensure that the font is consistent throughout. For your labs especially, this is valuable because you have access to a range of resources that can bring your digital content and advertisements to life while staying true to your overall look. And these assets are here to help your brand image and maintain brand consistency, like we were discussing before. So if you want to start a new project or refresh your current materials, you can head over to the UBC's brand resource webpage. I've added a little link on the bottom left. It's basically a one-stop shop for all things UBC specific. They have guidelines and assets that you will need. And just remember that these tools are there. Using these tools from the very beginning can help keep your brand strong and cohesive. It can be a great starting point to get you thinking about how you can build your own tailored brand image. Next slide, please. So all these resources I was talking about, these are the main resources. We will be sharing these slides after the event. So these are all clickable links, so you can get back to them and refer to them as and when you need it. But to get briefly into it, the UBC brand guidelines basically has great information about storytelling and how to adhere to the university's brand standards and best practices. For the UBC visual identity rules, it's basically like a rule book to elaborate on how to create consistent messaging. And it also has the UBC color palettes and the right ways and the wrong ways of using the UBC logo and any other UBC related assets. And then this last link on UBC Assets download basically gives you access to download any and all of the high definition UBC related logos, colors, and fonts you might need. And as for site-specific branding, you can check out this link, which is the site communications link, to learn more about psychology-specific signage, colors, logos, the size symbol, which Natasha was talking about, and more. And as always, you are more than welcome to reach out to us at com.web to inquire about any psychology-specific assets, as well as any other assistance that you might need in creating a brand for your labs. Next slide, please. So this ends our formal part of our series for Branding Guidelines 101. Thank you very much for joining us. And we would love to take any questions you might have and have about this session. And just to let you guys know, we have another session in the works planned for Design Principles 101, where we want to have the series carry forward from creating a basic foundation of branding consistency and image to actually applying it into designs. So we would basically talk about color theory and contrast and balance of techniques and more. So keep an eye out for that. We'll let you guys know about the date and location soon. But yeah, I would just like to open it up to any questions you guys have about branding guidelines or about just how to make a consistent image and branding for your labs. Yeah, you guys can either switch your mic on or put it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you guys. And also you could get into more what you want to see going ahead in the communication series as well, what you guys feel like would be helpful for your labs. So yeah, we'll give you guys a minute or two to either type in or put your mics on.
Hi, I guess my interest would be in hearing about opportunities to help us with our website design, because I know that most of UBC has or most of the labs in UBC site have we're using a stock template. So I guess some guidance on how to work with that template would be awesome. Maybe in another installment of what you guys are thinking about.
Thank you. That's a good question. Bonnie or Kushi, feel free to jump in. But to my knowledge, I've seen a template for the UBC website. I can look that up real quick and send it. Because I know there's like you said, a very specific template that the labs usually use. Oh, there you go. Bonnie said the CTLT has great WordPress resources and clinics. Sorry, I'm just trying to search up the. Yeah, we can share the link later. We're
Yeah,
searching.
we'll send out an email with the slides and the recording as well as a link. More resources you could look into, but I hope that might help to create a website shell and have more resources there. And yeah, going forward, we'll have more sessions specific to social media or website managing. So yeah, keep an eye out for those links as well. We just wanted to start with the foundation and go ahead with our series. So yeah, hopefully this gave you some insight into how to get started, and then we would get into the specifics. But yeah, any other questions or any other feedback? No problem. Thank you. Yeah, and then Bonnie just wrote in the text in the chat as well. Basically, you can reach out to com.web for any basic lab services, and we can hand over to the lab for content creation. And we can offer basic advice just either for website or just for brand identity as well, if you guys need. Yeah, any other questions? Anything else to bring up? Okay, if there's no other questions, and feel free to reach out to com.web@psych.ubc.ca. It's in the chat. Reach out with any specific or general questions you have about this session or about any future sessions. We'll stay back here for a few minutes if you guys have any questions, but I think we can end the session now. I hope you guys learned something about brand image and brand consistency, and as usual, keep an eye out for other sessions coming up. And yeah, thank you for joining us, guys.